Welcome to the Lasting Mission podcast. I'm your host for today, Britt Myers. And before we jump in, I just want to encourage everyone to check out missionrollcall.org. Our work is only possible through veterans and their families sharing their voices and allowing us to amplify those to enact positive change. So if you haven't gone there and lent your opinion or shared your voice with us, we encourage you to do that. But for today, we're so excited to have our guest, Michelle Lang, who's Executive Director of Operation Honor Roll Salute. And thank you, Michelle, so much for joining us and being part of this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Well, we can hop in on hopefully an easy one, which is you just telling us a little bit more about you and your organization, which you helped co-found.
Yeah, so we started technically 2021, November of 2021, under Veteran Help Point. And then we rebranded last year to Operation Honor Rural Salute. So we focus solely on rural veterans, small town veterans and their families, and kind of standing in the gap. So that way they have access and awareness to the resources that are available to them, even if they, live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. There's a large percentage of our veterans that do live in rural America or these small towns that are, over an hour away from VAs or have difficulty accessing mental health or just knowing what's available. So that's where we kind of bridge the gap and try to go to them to show them what's available.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you were a military spouse, and that, I think, experience you guys, once your husband was done with his service, living in a rural area, I think kind of shaped your approach to starting this organization. Is that right? And kind of what were you seeing and experiencing through y'all's lens?
Yeah. So whenever my husband got out of the military the first time, because he's back in, he did not do well in civilian life. He lasted about like a total of 3 months in civilian life before, he went full force back in. So whenever he got out the first time, it was like he had everything set up. He did SFL TAP. He's Army, so went through Soldier for Life program. Got a job back home in Pennsylvania. We were very close to our family, had a good support system, had a house, yada, 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 all was good. But that mental transition really, really hung him up. And that's not something that I was prepared for, because spouses are 100% left out of the conversation regarding transition. And so, I mean, I had no idea what to expect. He had no idea what to expect. And that like loss of service, purpose, kind of will to live, really. I mean, he was not in a good place. Our marriage crumbled. It was a really, really dark time. And for me, trying to find him resources in that area that was not super veteran centric, veteran friendly, it was tough, and it just straight up didn't happen. And even like at the time, the local VA was not helpful. It was not an option. And so that left us in a really, really bad spot. I had to kind of take care of myself and my own mental health needs in order to figure out how to like be the rock for our family. And through that, that's where I was able to get him help. And like my therapist was able to get him adjusted. And like he signed up for a deployment without telling me. And it was right as COVID happened. So we got our act together right before he deployed. He deployed for about a year. I had a baby. So I was left at home with like a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old when he deployed.
Yikes.
Yeah. Not like super fun, but standard for military life, right? But that's when like I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a mission, and that sucked. Because like being a mom is cool, but that wasn't it. That wasn't all I wanted to do. So I started, running my trap about, mental health and the military community. And I found a lot of veteran spouses that were like, yeah, I had the same problem. I could not get my husband help. I could not find this. And it's like, wow, I've written research papers before. Why can't I find mental health? Like, it was crazy. And so we got orders to Fort Bragg. And that's whenever we decided, let's just try and do something about this. And it slowly evolved into really where our heart was in the first place, was these underserved small towns that don't have the same access as places, like the Fort Bragg community or like the Fort Benning community that we just had come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's really hard sometimes for people to understand. Like you had mentioned, there's a large part of the veteran population that lives in rural areas. And I'll share with you, my dad is a veteran, and we live in Appalachia in Ohio, like middle of the state, farm country. And we have a great local VA clinic, but my dad still has to go over 2 hours to get to any specialists or any other like critical care. And even beyond that, people always say, oh, like, oh, what about telehealth? Use telehealth. And I'm like, my dad doesn't have Wi-Fi. I mean, it's not what you would think it is. Like, sure, he could go down to like a coffee shop, but there's all these barriers and kind of these little hurdles. And if you're already struggling with your mental health or your physical health, and there's one more roadblock in the way, it's just another thing that keeps you from getting the care that you need and that you deserve. And it sounds like that was, in a lot of ways, your experience and your husband's experience.
Yeah, it's hard to know. And everything is so different. Like, you could go to one county veteran service officer and they're great, and then you could go to the next county over and, they're not as great.
Yeah.
We've seen better. And so when you have that faith, and that's what happened to my husband. He went to the local VA, which was a full VA hospital, and they told him, no, we cannot see you. And he's like, I'm having mental health problems. And they said, no, can't serve you. You're part, because he went from Army to Reserve. And they didn't say, sorry, here's where we can refer you in town. They just said, don't let the door hit you. And that's not every VA, but when that happens, that's just a moral injury that somebody experiences, that and that was really like the catalyst to his like mental health downfall. It's like, well, I just spent 8 years in the Army, and you're telling me the place that I thought that I was supposed to go to for help can't serve me. And I'm not saying that's all VA. We actually are, developing a good relationship with our VA now, because I believe that people should use them more.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where, like, I wish I would have known I need to have an advocate there. There's all sorts of things. Like, it's so easy to make excuses as to not go get care when
Mm-hmm.
you live in these small towns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'd mentioned the transition. I mean, he was going through these traditional transition programs and kind of doing everything right, and yet still you guys weren't prepared fully for the environment that you were going into, and maybe that lack of access to care. And you said, veteran spouses or military spouses, doesn't have to just be veterans, are largely excluded from the transition process. When you met with other spouses, what sort of challenges were you hearing about? Was it very similar to what you guys had been experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, there's always an adjustment period I think everybody goes through. And from my conversations with other spouses, and other veterans, it's like they never expected that mental transition to hit them. And it could come before they even ETS, or, 6 months after. But like, at some point, you're kind of going to get hit by this, like, whoa, I like, almost like the wind is sucked out of you, because you're just in a different world. You're in a different environment. You're used to like this high tempo place, or, where to go. You need to go to the S1 to get your problem solved here. You need to do this. And then you're left the odd man out in a new world. And I experienced that. I mean, spouses, we have one foot in the civilian world and one foot in the military world at all times. So I think we have an easier time adjusting, but it's really hard to always be. I always say, like, I feel like as a spouse, I'm on the other side of the glass. And so, like, I feel like I'm watching everything from a point of view that, like, there's nothing I can do. I'm not allowed to get involved. I'm not even a number.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm my spouse's social security number is what I am. And so it can be really tough to try and enter that world to get the resources as somebody that's always had to be on the outside looking in.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a way to change that, to provide better support for the spouses, because like you said, you do have one foot in, kind of one foot out, but you're that direct point of contact for the military member, for the veteran, and usually their greatest support system. And so if you don't know where to go and they don't know where to go, I don't know, it just seems like there has to be a way to like tighten that up a little bit. And I mean, you're serving right alongside them. It's no different.
Mm-hmm. There's an organization now called, I think it's called the Military Spouse Transition Network. I have to look it up. Anna Larson is her name. She's the one that owns it. So she's trying to help people, help military spouses take ownership of the transition as well. I've heard of some SFL TAP classes. I don't know what they're called in Air Force and Marine and everything, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're starting to include spouses. I don't think that those classes are inherently like the answer, but at least it's a start to be included. And I'm talking to more, for example, I go into Fort Bragg about every 6-8 weeks and talk to the graduating class of this, the Home Builders Institute. So people can go and get certified as like an electrician, all different trades programs. So I go in and talk to them. I started talking to the people running that, asking if we can bring spouses into that. Because a lot of times, I mean, we're the ones retaining the information. So just like being in the same space is important. And then there's the Veteran Spouse Network that does a lot of great things. They're affiliated with, I think, the University of Texas, but they're a good network too to tap into. It's just a matter of like knowing that these resources are available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not just in the areas where you're leaving service. Fort Bragg, huge, military installation, and then a lot of people end up staying in that area. But like what we're talking about are the ones that leave. Like you guys went to Pennsylvania, or if you go to Ohio, or you go like North Dakota, wherever it is, like do you still have just getting them in that transition process and being aware of those resources before they leave those installations? Because it's only going to be harder when you're removed from this area that's so like hyper focused on that.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think that we should be talking about transition from like as soon as people get in, because it really, like, you really should think about it. My husband is about 5 years away from retiring right now. And it's a conversation that we have weekly. Like, what does that transition look like? What do you want to do? How are you going to set yourself up now to do that better? Because we've learned.
Yeah.
People don't want to hire you just because you're a veteran. Like in the civilian world, you still need to bring skills to the table, and not every company understands. They might say they're veteran friendly, but they still are not getting how your skills are translatable to the civilian world. And a little bit is on you and how you craft your resume, but like people need to be having these discussions. They need to learn how to have these discussions at least 2 years before you're thinking about transition. So, I mean, like 2 years before your contract's up or 2 years before you think about retirement, like really need to like vigorously get into these conversations about transitions. So that way, what's available to you no matter where you go. Because, I mean, everything is available to you pretty much everywhere now in 2025.
Yeah, it is definitely, we're better prepared or better set up now than they were even 10 years ago. But still a lot of work to be done, like you're saying. And we talk about that a lot at Mission Roll Call, and that transition portion is you can't do it too early. And definitely waiting until the year that you're looking to get out. Even then, it's probably too late. And it doesn't mean you can't be successful, but really just not setting yourself up well to have a smooth transition process. But
Yeah.
looking back at your organization, when you guys first started in 2021, what were maybe like some of the core challenges you were looking to solve? And has that evolved now that you've gotten a little more time and experience under your belt?
So when we first started out, we were looking to match people with resources that were available to them in their backyard. So physical resources, because what I learned is that there are a lot of organizations that have veteran arms or military arms, even though it's not how they're advertised. So we spent a lot of hours researching towns and resources, and then like where those resources are duplicated in other towns. We built out a map. Like we had this, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And we didn't want it to be so overwhelming that you couldn't use it, because I've definitely experienced databases where it's just like, whoa,
Yeah.
I don't even, if you don't
Like,
know where to start. Yeah. I mean, it's
mhm.
just, I'm not here for my PhD and resources. Just give me what I need, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Especially like we always wanted to keep in mind those that were navigating resources with TBIs, or, where they couldn't be on a computer for long, or they get frustrated easily. It's a very real problem in the military community. And it was not, I don't know, there was just always something where like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I think needs to be done. But like, there's something in my heart where it's just like, I'm not scratching the itch yet. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't hit it. And then we started doing in-person events, and I got people I started with a golf tournament, but I
Mm-hmm.
brought veteran resources to the golf tournament. I brought food trucks to the golf tournament. I brought craft vendors to the golf tournament. So I know that they had a captive audience no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I really saw the community get invested in these veteran resources. I saw them go and like tell their friends that are veterans about it. And then the golf tournament grew next year. We added so I started out really small, and I'm like, oh yeah, that that's more what I'm trying to target here, is these
Mm-hmm.
small areas of people that are extremely patriotic. They want to support their veterans. You drive down Main Street and you always see the thank you for your service banners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but how are we teaching them how to better support our veterans? They want to do it, but they don't have a way to do it. So that's whenever I really started to think differently. Like, how do I lean into these communities that I'm from,
Mm-hmm.
um, and teach them to serve better, but also serve them better?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like simple when you say it like that, but what a big undertaking still. And like, again, I'm just keep going back to my dad who just goes to like our VFW, and it's like the same people, and they kind of, they're all sharing the same ideas, which are, 10 years ago. I'm like, Dad, there's like new ways. It's hard almost to break that a little bit. Just even that resource sharing and how like the information is spread like amongst them in the community. But like you're saying, there is a desire to do that. It's just how do you get them what they need?
And word of mouth is like the biggest. That's how you win in rural America. Like, marketing is whatever. I mean, they might see something in the newspaper, but if somebody tells you about it that they have used, then it's like a plus 100 for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's good news. And you really, really have got to show up and keep doing the work to reach these rural areas for that word of mouth to spread. I think that's why a lot of corporations, a lot of companies, they don't focus on rural America, because like we're a hard bunch to sway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's funny. I'm from Columbus area, Ohio, and there's a lot of national headquarters there. Like Wendy's is there, a lot of like major retailers that you wouldn't expect. Everyone thinks they'd be in like New York or LA, but they're in Columbus specifically because of the Midwest, like using that as a test market, which
Mm,
is so interesting. Yeah, we're a good bunch of people, and we're a
yeah.
large group of people.
Yes. Down home. That's what I like. We're just like down home people,
Exactly.
salt of the earth, a little bit stubborn, a lot of it stubborn.
A lot of it stubborn. Yeah. That's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
Do you have like stories or experiences that have stood out to you over these last couple years of maybe people that you've helped? And I mean, I think your own story is really powerful, but anybody else that's had an experience that really resonated with you in the last couple
Yeah.
years?
I mean, this past event, every time we do events, it's it's heartbreaking and so rewarding.
Hmm.
Um, because it is a group of people that they ask for nothing, but deserve so much. And then whenever you offer it to them, like it's not that they're seeking out not seeking out resources because they're lazy, or, don't care about themselves or their future. It's just like, man, they're tired. Like, they're working, 8 to 5, 8 to 6 every day. Trying to get some fishing in every once in a while. They're tired. And yeah, this last festival, it was my hardest part is I can't get these guys to say anything on camera because they're too humble. They don't want to be part of anything. But good golly, we all cry because they are so moved by people just showing up for them. Like, I mean, men that just come up to you and tell you thank you and then have to walk away from you because they're starting to cry or their voice cracks. This year, we brought in 4 different VA facilities to the festival, and we put them under one tent. We brought in generators, we brought in hotspots, and we gave them a remote spot to work in the middle of a field. And we had people, I advertise, like, if you're a veteran and you have not been enrolled in VBA, VHA, this is your chance, but you need to bring your DD-214. You need to show up. We had people there all day at the VA tent, like asking questions, getting enrolled, getting the help. I had people that would come up to me and just like, they were so gracious and they were so thankful because one guy said to me, I got more done in 20 minutes than I have in the last 30 years trying to fight this.